Welcome back to the Wellness Lab, the podcast that helps you create your own wellness equation. I'm your host, Nick Palladino-King. Today's conversation is with Jeff Patterson, the founder of the Yielding Warrior. He's a martial artist, teacher, meditation coach. He's trained thousands of students across the world and has developed a unique framework called Yielding, a practice that teaches us really how to be present, how to optimize our lives, perform at our best, and really show up in the world as people who are present and really successful. So in this episode, we dive into what yielding is, why it's not about being passive, about becoming more practical and powerful. And Jeff breaks down how to develop a meditation practice that works for you. It's amazing how simply he breaks down 3 ways we can do a meditation practice of having a why, understanding it takes commitment, and finding a teacher or guide who can really help us. So whether you're an athlete, an entrepreneur, someone just navigating stress, this conversation is going to give you practical ways to find strength and stillness in your life. So enjoy and dive in. All right. Welcome into the Wellness Lab, the podcast that teaches you how to create your own wellness equation. Today, we've got Jeff Patterson from the Yielding Warrior. Jeff, great to have you. How's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Thanks for having me.
You got it. You got it. Excited to talk and go into yielding and mindfulness and awareness, and anywhere else that this conversation wants to take us. So I like to kind of start off with just a hot kind of question and dive right in. Sound good?
Yes, sir.
Cool. As I was going through your material on the Yielding Warrior and just finding a lot of synchronicities between our work and the way we're approaching teaching our students, I found something that you said. All goals are achievable with the practice of yielding. So I'd love for you to tell us what is yielding, and why does it unlock performance? I think that can sound really counterintuitive in our world that's so focused on stress and doing rather than being.
Yeah, so often people hear the term yielding and they think it's related to giving up or just kind of making way. And, yielding has been used for centuries in military battle and strategic interactions. And it's very deep, and there's different paths of yielding that we can take. I've broken them down into physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. And briefly, I'll kind of talk about what each of those are. So, with physical yielding, this is something that we use in martial arts and athletics all the time. And the basic idea is that I push you, you push me, whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually is going to push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. And now I can respond with less effort. And now it's obvious in athletics how this is a very valuable skill to have, because we're always coming up against other athletes that are bigger, stronger, and faster than us. And we need to learn how to strategically deal with that inequality. Now, in order to be good at physical yielding, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be, excuse me, the body has to be relaxed. The breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. Now, in order to reach a very high level of this is a lifetime journey. But from day one, we start noticing these things inside of ourselves with more clarity by integrating meditation practices into our life. And this is where it starts to become very interesting. And now we can move into what I call mental yielding, because of that heightened awareness, not only do we see that stuff inside of ourselves, but we also start to notice these things in other people.
Mm-hmm.
So say, for example, you and I are having a conversation and I say something that unsettles you, and I pick up on it right from that first sign of imbalance. It's a lot easier at that point to adjust the conversation and keep us in a happy place. And then me going too far off down this path where we get to the point where you want to knock me upside the head.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. One, we're being more considerate, which is something that we could all do more of. And two, it allows us to be strategic, so we can guide conversations to a positive outcome with the least amount of resistance. And this can be used in relationships, in business, and sales, and negotiations. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can apply this strategy. And then lastly, the third pillar of yielding is emotional yielding. And this is very much like mental yielding, but it's with our own interpersonal conflicts. So oftentimes things will happen to us and we'll respond and we'll go down a path, and we might get an hour, a day, a week down that road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice.
Mm-hmm.
But with yielding and our heightened awareness, by having a meditation practice in our lives, we're often able to sit back and not let our emotions get involved and be more present and make a more educated choice that saves us a lot of heartache on the other side. And I've been explaining this idea of yielding now for many years. I've been running my academy for over 30 years, been teaching for almost 36 years. And one of the most common things I'll hear people say is, yielding makes a lot of sense. In fact, I do yielding all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would agree in that I think everybody does some degree of yielding all the time. However, it's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years, I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of.
Mm-hmm.
And the meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that I truly believe most people will go through life and never have any clue of unless they have a practice like this in their life.
Yeah, it's so well said. I have so many images and questions coming up as you're talking. Something I'll talk about with my students is as you learn to be more mindful and conscious and aware, it's like you're getting to play cards with a loaded deck. That's kind of the analogy that I'll use. It's like everyone has access to these cards, but you have to learn how to use them. And once you understand them, it's like, oh wow, I could read a room, I can understand energy, I could feel what's changing. I'm playing with a loaded deck that gives me more advantages. And it's something that's got to be practiced and learned and honed. And they're available to everyone, which is what I love. It's just we're not taught these things for the most part. But how do we start to develop this, Jeff? I mean, we can talk about it, and you and I, we understand it through experience and practices. But how could the lay person listening start to even understand yielding and develop it?
It's a lifetime journey. This, to start, one is to have a conceptual understanding of it. And there is so many different applications of yielding in all of those three pillars that I talked about. And so the more that we understand the applications, the more we can kind of open up our vision and see it from multiple different perspectives. But one of the most important things is that we need to have some kind of a daily practice that helps us improve that awareness and that ability to stay present. And that can be through breath work, through doing Tai Chi, through doing yoga, doing Qigong, doing some kind of a meditative practice that helps us live that meditation lifestyle. And the meditative arts isn't meant to be a hobby that we do once or twice a week. It's meant to be a way of life. And we want to integrate these things into everything we do. And I usually break things down into kind of three main pillars of practice, no matter what meditation
Mm-hmm.
path you follow. And they are ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices.
Cool.
And the ritual practices are when we set time aside and, do sitting meditation or some standing meditation or your yoga practice, whatever that is for you. And then active practices or reset practices, these are extremely valuable and can be used all day, every day. They can be done when you're walking down the street or standing in line at the grocery store. They could be simple things like breath work or spinal rotations or mental imaging that we use or philosophical sayings that we memorize, different things that help bring us back to that present state of awareness. And then there's also philosophical focused training that can be used in ritual practices like we mentioned, but can also be done in a ritual base as well. And so with these three kind of pillars, we can start creating that evolving life practice, which helps set the stage for expanding our perception of these yielding concepts.
Mm. Yeah, I like how you broke those all down, and you're making my job easy. I was going to ask you about all these things already, and you already knocked them off for me. So, for meditation, it sounds like it's a little more fluid than maybe what most people think. I think a lot of times students come to us and they think it's sitting by themselves in a room for 20 minutes twice a day, and that can feel daunting. That can feel like, hey, I don't have time for that. But it sounds like you're saying we can sit, we can have practices throughout the day. One I'll do is if I find myself judging someone, I'll say to myself, judging, as a reminder to not judge. It sounds like that's more of that active
Yes.
technique. And then the philosophical, maybe what kind of asking ourselves deeper questions about who we are, why we're here, more on the self inquiry side. Does that sound about right?
The philosophical part of the training can be some of that, could also be focusing on maybe what your towards and away from values are and really ingraining that and being conscious of that. It could be memorizing different sayings. One of my old meditation teachers about 25 years ago had me memorize the Tao Te Ching, which is 81 sayings. And I said all 81 sayings every day for about 12 years. And it was just
Mm-hmm.
kind of part of my ritual habit. And this is a great practice. If you're not familiar with the Tao, I highly recommend checking it out. It's you start to see these things where you'll read through them or memorize them, and you'll have a general understanding and think, oh yeah, I can see a few applications here. But then you start to live it, you start to memorize it, you start to think about it thousands of times over, and you start to see 100 different applications and seeing it here, here, and here. And it really starts to open up your peripheral vision, which is one of the reasons why, of the five pillars of a meditation practice, where we have performance, the therapeutic side, the medical side, the philosophical side, and also the meditative or spiritual side. I've always been attracted to the philosophical side because it does open up that peripheral vision and kind of give you an ability to be more strategic in your actions and thoughts.
I like that the peripheral vision idea of meditative practices, like bringing in more awareness. Like instead of just being myopic, you start to see and notice more. And something you had mentioned that I really like, you said that we at first we have like conceptual understanding. I think that's we can read the Tao Te Ching. It's like, oh, cool, I get it. But where I find the rubber meets the road is when I have experiential knowledge, and that is like, oh, here's this event that happened, and then I see how that understanding now applies. And then we move to then what I would call embodied wisdom. And it sounds like that's kind of where you're getting to, is after you practice these things, they become part of you. They become natural, maybe more of our natural like MO rather than something we have to do. Is that where you're leading students towards and
Yeah,
yourself?
you want to have that understanding where it's just part of your nature, and that's the whole idea of having these ritual type practices. I think a lot of times people look to the meditative arts as an escape. They'll have this and they'll, well, I'll go practice some breath work when that happens, or I'll go do my Tai Chi form. And the idea is that if you use it that way, while it can sometimes be helpful in those scenarios, you're never getting to that, and I don't like using this term, but that mastery level
Mm-hmm.
where you start to live the practice, where it just becomes how you breathe, where it just becomes how you take things in, and you're so past having to memorize where this hand goes or how this breath works or how this thought process works, that we can start to see it more from its source. And when you can do that, that's where true mastery comes from. Now, I said I don't like that term because I feel like it's impossible to ever reach that true mastery state. However, the path towards mastery is what is so valuable and important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for everyone listening, it's Jeff's not saying that the practicing isn't important, and I don't mean to speak for you, Jeff, but it's like the wax on, wax off is how we learn to apply these things. We need a teacher to show us the technique, and then after we practice it for a long time, then that's when we can start to release the technique. At least that's what I found through my own experiences. And you go, oh, that's why my teacher taught me that, or oh, that's how that
Yeah.
applied. And it's like this bonk on the head of like, like in Karate Kid when he finally gets it. It's like, no, I wasn't just teaching you this for the sake of it. I was teaching this because it has an application for your life.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because there's been so many times through the years where I'll learn something from one of my teachers and, I think I understand it. I'll get a
Mhm.
grasp of it and I'll use it and I'll start integrating it. And then 5 years later, it'll be like, that's what he meant. I finally get it. It's like one of those things where if you don't put the time in and the repetitions, you never really get to the true meaning.
Mhm. Aren't those moments so funny when it's like you think you got it and it's like 5 or 10 years later from something your teacher taught you and you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. And I find they come in a very loving way. They don't come in like a
Yeah.
beating yourself up way. It's like, that's what they were saying. Got it. I had one of those last night. I was watching the documentary on Osho, and I had been talking to my master about him years ago, and he said something, and I'm watching the show, and I go, "Oh, that's what he was talking about." Those moments are fun. They're cool. There can
For
be
sure.
fun on the spiritual path. You don't have to take it so seriously all the time.
For sure. Yeah, they're great.
That's rad. Cool. Well, how do we? There was something I picked up from your book that I was looking at, and you say that stillness is as a paradox, and it's one of the hardest parts of the meditative practice. So, for those that are listening, a lot of our listeners they're busy people that are anxious, that don't know how to slow down. How do they put those together of developing stillness, yielding, and still being, let's say, for lack of a better word, successful?
Yeah. You know, for teaching the meditative arts for over 30 years, one of the most common things I'll hear people say is, "Yeah, I tried meditation or some form of it, and it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet the mind." And somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that in order to be successful with meditation, that you have to reach this state of nirvana where nothing bothers
Mhm.
you. And,
Yep.
it couldn't be further from the truth. I've spent my whole career traveling around the world, training with some amazing meditation practitioners. And I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. We
Yeah.
all do, and if you sit for 20 minutes or do a movement practice for 20 minutes and you get distracted 50 times during that session, and every time you get distracted, you bring your attention back to your posture, to your breath, to your movement, and you find that center again, then you just got 50 repetitions of how to be out of balance and
Mm-hmm.
find center. And if you do that every day, every month, every year, you start to develop this power and this ability to find that center amongst any chaos that's thrown your way. And so that's the true value of having a meditative lifestyle, is being able to be in that kind of control and, one, recognize these imbalances before you get too far down the
Mm-hmm.
path, and two, have the tools to find that center and not get too distracted once you kind of make a wrong turn.
Yeah, that was a really powerful reframe right there. That getting off center is how we practice getting back to center. And the more we practice that, the better we get at it. That to me sounds like where the mastery lives. First, it's awareness of what even center or neutral is. Then, oh, now I realize I'm not connected to it. Now I've caught that. How quickly can I come back? And I think what I've noticed is, I wonder what you think about this, Jeff, is the student doesn't know where center is nor how to come back. The teacher knows where it is, and maybe it takes us, 10 seconds, a minute, a day, a week. Those get shorter over time. And then the master is gone and back before anyone even notices. That's from the people I've sat around. That's what I've seen in them, is they come back and it's instant. What are your thoughts on that aspect?
Definitely. I think as you train more, you're able to recognize those balances right away. And when that happens, it's a lot easier to come back to center. I always tell people, if you're you're standing on a rocky hill and you drop a pebble. It's easy to bend over and pick up the pebble. But if you let it start rolling down the hill and it knocks a bunch of other rocks loose and creates a landslide, it's hard to stop that momentum. And
Mm.
our thoughts and our distractions are just like that landslide. You start devoting that negative energy to those distractions, they build up that momentum. And the real trick is noticing those distractions, because most of us go through life and a lot of times we don't even realize we're upset until we're already
Mhm.
fuming,
Mhm.
and if you can recognize that imbalance and notice, hey, my breath's getting a little disrupted, what's going on here, and then you bring that back to center, you can save yourself so much time and energy and heartache just by having that open awareness. If you think about maybe you're coming into a room for a meeting that you have, and you've just got cut off in traffic and you're late and you're frustrated, and then somebody says something like, hey, you got mud on your shoe, and you bite their head off because you're already
Mhm.
frustrated. Whereas somebody comes into the room and you're very relaxed, they could give you a serious problem, and you could be very in tune and very approachable and be able to handle a solution to the matter without getting excited. And so our mindset and how we approach these problems is huge. And when you can learn how to stay closer to that center all day, every day, when those problems come up, it's so much easier to find a path and of least resistance to deal with them.
Yeah, and I love that picture you're painting of like the landslide, the snowball getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's like it takes so much more effort and energy to stop, and it gets out of control. Right now, I've done it. I'm sure you have, and it gets out of control, and then it knocks stuff over, and it hurts people, it injures people, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And just, I guess what you're getting to is not letting it get too big or not letting it get too off center through awareness. Oh, I'm off track. How do I come back?
Yeah. And I think something else is really important to note with this is that a lot of people, I think, kind of loosely use the term presence when they
Hmm.
talk about the meditative arts. And, I like to think about life as like we all have our own island. And in order to get to that island, we have to cross all these waters. And along the way on those waters, there's hungry sharks and there's predators and there's things that we've got to learn how to navigate. And oftentimes in life, when a shark comes up, we run and we try to get away from it, or we find a boat and we scoot away from it. But if we don't learn how to settle those waters and make that shark happy, then the moment we step off our island in the future to go navigate and see new territory, those past sharks are coming back to haunt us.
Hmm.
And so maybe a new shark comes our way and we don't even have the capacity to deal with it because the old shark's partnering up with them. And now we've got these two problems that we're focusing on. But if you can learn to go through life and settle the waters and face things and become aware of what's happening, and it doesn't mean that these things are never going to come up again, because,
Hmm.
we always have things in our life that revisit us. But if we never deal with them, if we never face them, and if we don't find a way to let them settle, then they're just going to keep building that negative momentum. So, we're all on our island looking to go explore the world. Let's explore that world with settled waters and not have to deal with those hungry sharks that we just keep letting be agitated.
Yeah, and I know you talk about this, but that's where spiritual bypassing gets us in trouble. It's like, oh, I've done my work. I was at Burning Man 2 weeks ago, and I noticed was a lot of people there because they're in the spiritual community, and they go to Burning Man. They think they've done their work, and as things got tough, the weather got challenging. They didn't sleep. They'd been on partying. You could see these sharks, their fears, their doubts, their neuroses coming out at people, and it's like, oh, whoa, you haven't done as much work as you thought. And that's a good place too to realize that we've got more work to do, right, and come back. But yeah, these sharks, fears, doubts, guilt, shame, blame. If you don't deal with them now, like you said, they come back around, they spiral around. And I find life wouldn't be as fun without those either. Like you're saying, of like, the idea isn't to be in a state of nirvana, it's to be present with what is,
Yeah,
and to enjoy life, to be present with life, and to dance with life. I think that's a lot of what you're getting at too in that picture.
for sure. And also too is when you build the habit of learning how to satisfy those predators
Hmm.
and make them content, now when future predators come your way, you have the tools to deal with them. And instead of it being something that takes a week to deal with, you're dealing with it a lot quicker. You
Yeah.
have the tools, you have the ability. And so I think, just have the focus, have the insight, have the grounding to, when those things come your way, face them head on and figure out what you need to do to settle the waters. And if you do that, now when you go to your meditation practice and we talk about presence, you're reaching a level of presence that most people will never see.
Mm. And it sounds like you're saying, okay, so like grounded in our physical bodies, like aware of our energy, and then mindful of our thoughts. Is that kind of the three things that we should be focusing on, at least at first?
So it that's kind of connected to something that I think is really valuable to chat about, and I call them the five regulations.
Mm.
These five regulations are the core underlying principles of any meditation practice. It doesn't matter what path you follow, and they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what all five of these are. When we talk about regulating the body, it's basically your alignment and your relaxation and your ability to be settled in any position that you're in. And an example would be, think about maybe a time when you're sitting in front of your computer for 3 or 4 hours and your shoulders are rounding forward and your neck's getting sore and you're feeling lethargic. And then another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and you feel like you're on top of the world. Well, these two different energetic states we're in 100% control of all day, every day.
Hmm.
And so this is the basic idea of that body regulation. On a little deeper level, it's maintaining some level of muscular structure in the body and flexibility, eating a healthy diet to keep our energy levels up, and getting an appropriate amount of sleep. All of these we could go into more detail about, but I
Hmm.
think you have the general idea of that body regulation. Then we have regulating the breath, and the breath is a very deep topic. And in fact, Qigong is often referred to as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies, and we use these consciously and subconsciously all day, every day. A basic idea of the yin breath would be is if you ever listen to somebody sleep, their natural breathing pattern is a longer inhale and a shorter exhale.
Hmm.
And this is the body's natural way of bringing that conscious mind into your subconscious mind, which is where we are when we're sleeping and dreaming. And so, if we want to emulate that inward style of energetic expression in our meditation practice, we can do longer inhales, soft retentions at the end of the inhale, and shorter
Hmm.
exhales to help bring that energy inward, which is great for stress reduction, dealing with anxiety, boosting our creativity. There's lots of reasons why we would do this yin side of the breath. Then we have the yang side of the breath, and the
Hmm.
yang side of the breath is more aggressive. It's kind of like if you ever had to push your car or pick up something heavy.
Hmm.
Your natural instinct is to exhale and put tension in the breath, maybe even make it audible. And this helps expand the energy and bring it outward. And so once we understand how to use the breath strategically, we can use it to regulate our physical, mental, and emotional well-being.
Hmm.
And then the next regulation is regulating the mind. And we briefly touched on this when we talked about getting distracted in our meditation and then using our practice to come back to center. There's this story that I enjoy about these two old monks, and they're walking down this excuse me, they're walking down this dirt road after a huge rainstorm, and they come up to this big mud puddle. And on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl, and she's standing there in a white dress, and she's crying. And the older monk, he hollers across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." So he rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle, picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, sets her down, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles further down the road. And finally, the younger monk is just furious. And he says, "You know we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down and says, "I left that girl back at the puddle. Why are you still carrying her around?" When we talk about these mental regulations, we got to learn how to let things go and not wait till we get 2 miles down the muddy road. And then the fourth regulation is regulating the energy. And this is an extremely deep topic and something that we could talk for hours about. But the basic idea, is that once we've reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, we now have the tools to regulate the energy so we can lead it inward, extend it outward, circulate it in the body to get different outcomes that help control our well-being as well. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, we have the spiritual regulation, which is very profound, and it's something that meditation practitioners will spend their entire life's journey working towards reaching those deeper levels of spiritual cultivation. However, we also use this every day. And an example of this would be, think about how when you get excited, a lot of times when we get excited, our energy perks up. But when we get excited, oftentimes so does our body, and our body gets tense and tight. And when that happens, while the energy is being elevated, because we're using a lot of that energy by tensing up the body and getting excited, we're not able to reach that level of, in athletics, they call it the flow state, where their energy is at this peak performance, but their body is relaxed and pliable, and they're rooted in their ground and their movement, and they're able to perform at a level that is maybe above what they normally do. And this is an example of how we experience that spirit, if you will, in everything we do. And so understanding these 5 regulations, you can see that no matter what you do in life can be affected by this foundation that we build by having a meditation practice in our life.
Yeah, it's so beautifully said, and I love that story around letting things go. And I'm almost wondering for the listener as they're listening to us talk, of them going, "Oh my God, this is so much." This is, you just described a lifetime's worth of work. And yeah, to some extent. And I was looking through your bio before, and you were in the military, you've got black belts in multiple martial arts, you're doing Qigong, Tai Chi, Qigong. And I myself have into training, into yoga, into meditation, into metaphysics, into coaching. And it's like, sometimes I think it could be a lot to bring in all of these techniques, but what I'm getting from you, Jeff, is like all of these techniques that you've learned over a lifetime are teaching you how to bring all of these into your world in a applicable way, in a sustainable way. But this is learned stuff over time. You're not going to necessarily just get it right today. So if anyone's listening, they're feeling overwhelmed, this takes time. This takes practice. It takes a teacher to show you how to do these things, and you can do them. You can learn them just like we have.
Yeah, everybody can do this practice, and I start people all the time from day one. One of the most challenging things I've faced as a teacher through the years is getting people to understand the importance of the practice and make it part of their life. And I've tried numerous things through the years. I've had over 26,000 students come through my academy and thousands more online that I've worked with. And I came up with these things that I call the 3 considerations for a new student. And I find that if somebody puts a little bit of time and energy into these 3 areas, that they're so much more likely to really benefit from the practice and create a life practice with the meditative arts. The first one is, what is it that's drawing you to the practice? Are you looking to improve your health? Do you want to watch your grandkids grow up someday and be more mobile and be free so you can kind of go do things with them? Or are you dealing with a stress disorder? Or maybe you're an athlete, you want to improve your performance. Whatever that is, and then once you have that reason, then I like you to take it a step further and think of 10 to 20 things that will positively change in your life by integrating this practice, whether it's your own interpersonal communication, how you can lead, how you respond to certain things, your awareness level, whatever that is. And then once you do that, think of 10 or 20 negative things that will happen by not integrating this.
Mm-hmm.
And what this does is it gives us the fuel to fight those times of resistance. You know, we're all tempted sometimes when the alarm goes off to hit the snooze button and not get up and do our practice. But if we really have a good, solid reason and a motivation, we start looking at this as something we get to do and get excited about it rather than a chore that we have to do. And that mindset is a very important shift.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second consideration, and this is extremely important, is approaching your practice with the understanding that you have to be consistent. And there's this Chinese story that I really love about the stonecutter. It illustrates this idea very well. He's a famous stonecutter in China, and he creates these animals and these landscapes that are so unique and detailed that anytime anybody sees his work, they just know it's his. And because of his popularity, he has people from all around the country that come to stay with him and study with him and learn the trade. Well, every morning, this old stonecutter, he starts his day off down by the river meditating. And one day after his meditation session, he's walking along the river and he has this profound vision of this big 6-foot tall, mystical Chinese jade dragon. And he's so taken by this vision that he just knows this has to be his next project. So he spends the next few months traveling all around looking for the perfect stone for his new creation. Finally, he finds a stone and he brings it back to his place, and he spends the next period of time, day in and out, just sitting with the stone, feeling the energy and trying to envision how this dragon will soon appear. Finally, one day he begins working on the stone, and he carefully places his chisel on the backside of the stone and starts tapping away with his hammer, hundreds if not thousands of times to the exact same spot. No change. A few days went by, and 1,000 more taps to the chisel, still nothing. A few more days went by, same thing. A few of his apprentices started second guessing, thinking, man, maybe this guy should try something else. This doesn't seem to be working. A few more days went by, and finally he tapped the chisel, and this big 3-foot section of the stone separated, and it created this smooth, slightly curved line that was soon to be part of the dragon's back. One of his apprentices who was watching said, "How did you know that that strike was going to break the stone?" And the stonecutter replied, "It wasn't that strike that broke the stone. It was the thousands of strikes before it that broke the stone." And with a bit of a discouraged tone on his voice, the apprentice said, "But I've been watching you, and there was no change, not even a crack in the stone. Why didn't you try something else?" And the stonecutter got down on one knee, and he felt the smooth line that he just created, and he said, "Each strike was not wasted. The stone was changing beneath the surface. And not only was the stone being transformed, so was the one who wields the hammer." And the reason why I find this to be such a powerful story is that this is the meditative arts. We're practicing this breath work, these movement practices, these standing meditations, and we're doing this day in and out. We don't always see the change happening day to day, but it's through our consistency and our repetition that we're laying the foundation so we can feed on these fruits for the rest of our lives. And so understanding that consistency is extremely important. And then the final and third consideration is you have to find a guide. There's millions of videos out there on YouTube and this recommendation and that. And if you think you're going to sift through all of that and find any kind of depth in your practice, you're going to waste so much time and energy. And, I've literally seen people come into the academy here who have been self-taught, and sometimes they've spent 10, even 15 years on their practice, which they've been very disciplined, and I have a lot of respect for that. But, they're barely scratching the surface with what they could have done in that amount of time. And so, thinking about what your real meaning is and understanding your why, understanding that consistency is where all the true gold is at, and then having somebody in your corner to show you the straightest path, you're going to see the most benefits with your practice and be very likely to succeed at a high level if you do that.
Yeah, it's so beautifully said, and obviously said from experience and from understanding and from wisdom. And that piece of knowing your why, and when you don't want to do your practice, is your why greater than your why not? Right. And staying connected to that faith. That's a really important piece too of the spiritual path, is faith. I can't see it yet, but I know that it's coming. And to trust a teacher or a guide to help you get through there is immense. I'm reminded of years ago, someone asked me how I became a meditation teacher. And I just kind of flippantly said, I don't know, I meditated for 10 years. And it was just such a funny response I got back. They were like, oh, that makes sense. It's like, how else would you do that? But it was just such a natural response. I love that metaphor of just continuing to chisel away, chisel away, chisel away until one day it shows. And it's all those actions before that have brought you those fruits of your labor. I really, really love that, Jeff. And I hope the listeners can see we need a why, we need to be consistent, and it's really helpful to have a guide show us a way. As we kind of bring it in, for a landing, maybe a couple quick hitters, couple quick hit questions to kind of bring us in. Sound good?
Yeah.
What's a belief about meditation people should get rid of or forget?
I think we kind of already touched on that in that you don't need to quiet the mind to benefit from the practice. And it's the process and the tools and the understanding and the awareness that is gained by that consistent practice that helps you be successful. So don't think that you're failing just because you have a racing mind. And the reason why I bring that up again, I know we touched on that, is because I've literally probably heard that thousands of times through the years, and I think everybody has that idea that they're failing because they can't quiet their mind. Nobody can always quiet their mind. It's okay if you can't do that.
Yeah, give yourself some grace. What's your favorite off the mat practice to build awareness?
I really love the philosophical training. And so I'm always working on memorization of sayings that I like, and working on strategic ideas and seeing things from new perspective. And so that's kind of one of the things that I always take into pretty much most of the moments of my waking day.
Any example of that, of what one of those mantras or affirmations might be?
Well, we talked about the Tao Te Ching. There's many sayings there that I really like and I still say. One of the things that I find a lot of value in is I've got a list of kind of my values that I'm connected to and that I like to move towards. And not only just the surface value of what it is, like, for example, health or love, but what does that health or love term mean to me? And how do I connect with that? And how can I resonate with that and bring that into my life rather than just say, yeah, I want to be more healthy. And so I use things like that. And then the same thing with my away from values. What are things that I don't want to adapt? What are ways of thinking that I don't want to integrate into my life? And then why? How would they affect me? Or how can I be successful in not having them be part of my life? And so when you think about these things and learn to live with that kind of presence and awareness, you can start molding the way that your mind operates. The mind is like a muscle, and if you
Mhm.
train it to think negatively, you're going to spend a lot of time thinking negatively. But if you train it consistently to integrate the thoughts and the reactions and the responses that you want to live by, you can create the life you want. And that's what the meditative arts is all about.
Mm. Yeah, love that one. And then last one, outside of your book and outside of the Tao Te Ching, what's a book you would most recommend to the listeners and why?
So many. Yeah, I'm a pretty avid reader. I've got a very large library at home. On this topic, a book that I enjoy is by Robert Greene. It's called Mastery. I think that's one that you might find some interest in if you're into this kind of idea.
Cool. Rad. Um, this has been great. I know you've got a course on your website, right? That our listeners can check out, like a 14-day course. Is that right?
Yeah, if you go to theyieldingwarrior.com, you can check out some of my online programs there. I'm also giving away a free copy of my most recent book. If you go to theyieldingwarrior.com/book, just pay for shipping and handling. We'll send you out a copy of the book.
Great. Okay. I'll put those links also in the episode for the listeners. But yeah, pick up a copy. I'll do the same. Jeff, it's been great. Any last words of wisdom before we sign off?
One thing for anybody out there listening that has thought about meditation or maybe is on the fence, if you decide to take on the practice and just commit to it for a year, just do 20 minutes a day for a year, it'll be one of the best things you ever do for yourself, and you'll do it for the rest of your life. The Dalai Lama once said everybody should meditate for 20 minutes a day. Unless you're too busy, then you should meditate for an hour. If you can just keep up that 20 minutes a day and see all the benefits and the things that will happen in your life because of that, you'll never stop doing it.
Mhm. Yeah, I would double tap on that. And actually, before our talk, I put up a post on my social medias around breath work, and I just said, practice this for a week and your life will change. Practice this for a month and your life will transform. And practice this for a year and you'll be a different person. Because the way you breathe controls how you think. The way you think controls the life that you're living. So this has been great, Jeff. I really appreciate going deep. We could talk about all these topics forever. I'm sure I have to have you on again to go deeper into some specific areas. But thanks so much for your time. Thanks so much for your knowledge and for your presence.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Welcome. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Wellness Lab, the podcast that teaches you how to create your own wellness equation. That was Jeff Patterson from the Yielding Warrior. If you are curious about his work, his teachings, you can find a free resource on his website, a 14-day program at theyieldingwarrior.com. He's also got a book on his website that's for free. You just pay for shipping as a guest on our podcast. He's got trainings, meditations that can support you in your journey. And as always, if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, leave us a review, subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. We never ask for anything on this episode, just that if it resonates, you share it and help the world create more consciousness. And remember, the path to more health, wealth, peace, and happiness isn't about forcing things to be harder. It's about learning how to yield. I'm Nick Palladino-King. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Wellness Lab. Much love.